Thanks for listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. This episode is a little different. You'll know it's for you if you've thought of writing a memoir or starting a Substack or a blog that tells your story. Maybe right after the idea whispered in your mind to do something like that, a mental mean girl asked, "Why is your story worth telling? Who'd read it anyways?" And on and on. Then you turned your attention to something else that felt safe, maybe, that you know like the back of your hand. But the idea of writing down your story still tickles your imagination every time you read something or hear a story that makes you smile or feel something deep in your chest. Yeah, you're the reason I'm doing this episode. Your story is worth telling, even if you don't choose to share it widely. Let's get into it. So every year for my birthday, I gift myself a tarot reading from my friend Karen Rontowski. This year, she said that my guides insisted that I, quote, not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Well, I knew the second she said that my guides were referring to my whip. In author lingo, that's my work in progress, a manuscript I've been working on. It's called Drafting an Obituary, and it's about the story of my mother and myself, because she asked me to write her obituary when my father passed away. Okay, so up to this point, I've created a binder and I filled it with family documents, drafted original accounts of my life that I've made, and the family stories I've been privy to, as well as some firsthand accounts written by my mother and some black and white photos. I also found some very intriguing articles from newspaper.com about a murder that happened in the family. It was like a rumor that I've substantiated with some newspaper articles. So around the election this year, no surprise, I was overwhelmed and I set the entire project in a dustbin. But my guides were clear, with Karen at least, don't throw it away. Even if it seems like you won't want to publish the book, keep at it. And as I sit behind the mic right now, for the first time since the summer, I'm genuinely excited to get cracking on that whip again, maybe even before 2025. What it got me thinking about is how there is value in writing your perspective of your life. Please hear me out on this, because I'm going to edit and publish this episode, and it's for you. There is always value in writing your story. You may decide to share your writing widely or just with close friends and family. Maybe even keep it to yourself. The size of the readership does not add to the importance of the act of putting down your story onto paper. Because of the first rule of writing, that's how I know this to be true. And that first rule, write for yourself, not for some projected audience or some genre sub-niche you think will bring you masses of moolah. Write for you. Yeah, write for yourself. Second piece of advice, write how you speak. That may mean you enlist your phone's audio message feature to capture your stories, or you use something fancy like Dragon software, which recognizes voices and types a transcript for you. Don't write how your favorite author writes. Your voice is unique. Your sayings, your perspective, your jokes, what you notice first and share loudest, that is all inherently you. That is the value you bring to your writing. Do not discount it. To discount it is to discount yourself. I won't let you do it. Third piece of advice. Write how you like to read. Do you enjoy stories that are a dry list of a day? Like, first I woke up and I brewed coffee. Then I picked a cup that was mostly clean from the cabinet. I poured in a half a cup and I added some sugar. I stirred the whole thing and sat in a chair. I mean, you get the idea. Yawnsville. Or do you like to consume stories that assume you are intelligent and jump into the action and just know you'll, as a wizened reader, know what fills in the blanks? What narrative style do you like reading best? That's another way to write how you read. For me, I love to have two seemingly disparate subjects. Sometimes it's three, and maybe there are moments in time that don't seem to fit together. Then slowly I plate together the stories into a finale that's, I hope, all the more powerful because they are sharing different experiences with the same underlying subject. My next piece of advice is be yourself. Like that saying, dance like no one is watching. Okay, write with that same freedom too. Use your humor, your way of storytelling to convey the action. And if you cuss, just throw the cuss words in there like you would normally, when you get into a raucous story. This does not mean publish everything you write without taking the time to edit it or think about, when it comes to stories from your own life, the impact your words may have on other people that were part of that moment. They will never remember it exactly the way that you did, but at the same time, you don't want to put something out there that is completely not your story to tell, if you know what I mean. But write without regard to sensitivities. Just be with reckless abandon, as they say. Then edit afterwards and edit again. And maybe let a writer's group edit too, or a trusted early reader or set of readers. The best memoirs I have ever read have this in common. Only that one author on the planet could have told that story that way. Yeah, be that. Be you. I'm not one to add the number of minutes you need to sit behind a computer or a typewriter per day, or the word count to shoot for each week. Those rules, they don't work for me. The one that does, strike while the iron is hot. Okay, so what do I mean? When you have an idea or a memory comes forward, jot it down immediately. You don't have time for more than a Post-it? Okay, that's fine. But make sure you get the gist so that you will be able to pick up the thread at a later date and decipher it and then flesh out the idea. Do not let that inspiration zip away unnoticed, or maybe I should say unnoted. Okay, I'm cracking myself up. Which brings us to my last piece of advice, and then I'll be quiet. Hide notebooks and pens everywhere. Buy a stack of those teeny tiny spiral notebooks or composition books and pens and plant them in your truck glove box, your backpack, your purse, your nightstand, your coffee table, your junk drawer, your treadmill, so that when those ideas happen, you're able to make a note. That's it. Odds are that you've already begun to tell your story on socials, in text threads, emails, in the margins of a book you're reading, as journal entries. Collect up those bits and make copies. And what about your social posts? I advise you to screenshot your words and print them out. Then put all of that into a 3-ring binder. Ta-da! You have the bones in front of you of your own work in progress, the beginnings of your own memoir. As you feel that bravery grow, your comfort with sharing your stories, then listen to the feedback you receive from readers. Does a much younger person remark about the way the world used to work back then, or how different the job culture is now versus then, or an imbalance due to gender or race or something else in a job site or at a school or just in life? Consider those comments a bright yellow highlighter on how you tell your story and why it is important that you continue to do just that. In the spirit of this episode, I'd love to share something I wrote recently about my Mike, the father we called Supermom. I hope you see some of the ways I like to take different experiences that happened in roughly the same window of time and knit them together. I didn't know it when I began the first draft of Supermom, but the theme is thinking I was getting the short end of the stick. But really what I got was a great big blessing. Here it is. Supermom. When I was 5, I lived in an apartment complex in rural Eastern Washington with my mother and my big brother. Called the Green Trees, the name was misleading unless the ones painted on the sign counted. My Palos Verdes Princess canopy bed and dresser felt oversized in my new room, but then I jumped up and down on the mattress. Wild leaps, I grazed the wall, but then fell onto my bed, safe and sound. Yes, I decided I could work with this. My brother Garth's slightly bigger room was 2 doors down. Was it a perk of being 3 years my senior? My gut said yes. Born with a mental measuring tape, I'm sure on move-in day I pitched a fit. Then when November storms rolled through the Columbia Basin, I learned why the paint on his ceiling was riddled with rust-colored blotches. If the price for extra square footage was a leak and a drip bucket, he could have it. Extra space wasn't the only privilege Garth's age afforded him. After school, I went to daycare while Garth ambled home to enjoy a few hours of true freedom. I imagined him eating bowl after bowl of sugary cereal stretched across the sofa and watching cartoons. Daycare was run out of a single-family home a stone's throw from the Green Trees. I have no memory of what the house interior looked like because kids weren't allowed to linger there. A faceless adult zipped up my coat and pushed me out the back door. 5 steps down was the yard, a slab of concrete and a swatch of weedy grass speckled with a single cedar tree and a scrappy bush or two. We roamed that fence line like a pack of wild dogs, rattling the chain link and testing the footholds for a possible quick escape. The lack of greenery in the yard made hide and seek pointless. Tag was out of the question, too. In fact, the single most popular activity, it was to stand on the slab of concrete and wait for parents to show up. My hopes rose each time a flash of headlights flickered across the house. I gave the stink eye to every child that left before me. Some kids were chosen to go inside the house to, quote, warm up, with little explanation given to the rest of us. I would find out in the weeks that followed I was lucky. On a few occasions, Gar showed up on the other side of the fence on his bike. The first time I spotted him, I assumed he'd come to rescue me. The scenario played out in my head like a Shirley Temple movie. Garth would express how much he missed me. The cartoons weren't as funny when he watched them alone. The cereal, too, wasn't as sweet. After wiping the tears from his freckled cheeks, he talked me through how best to climb the 6-foot barrier, and as I neared the top, he'd stretch out his arms to catch me. Oh, I'd been a fool. He watched for me, pleased at the smile across my face as I came near. As I licked my lips, ready to wiggle the toe of my shoe into the chain link, he rode away, his laughter hanging in the air like a fart. The routine changed when a provider at the daycare was accused of molesting children. I was pulled out immediately. It did not matter that my mother had no backup plan. My safety mattered most. Pragmatically, though, she needed time to find and vet a new care center or babysitter. In the meantime, after class, Mom picked me up and drove to the school where she taught. I became an informal addition to Mike's afternoon kindergarten. My mother taught in the classroom next door. For whatever reason, she thought it would be wrong to have me join her students. Instead, I became an informal addition to Mike's afternoon kindergarten. I had no idea this man would become important to my family for decades to come. This man would be my mother's partner for the next 50 years. Mike would be the person Garth and I would dub Supermom. Mike loved to tell the story of when and how he first fell in love with my mom. They met during playground duty. For Mike, it was love at first sight. The picture of them standing on the asphalt, both with their cool 70s hair, their bell bottoms, their faux fur coats, getting to know each other as they mitigated arguments over kickball cheats and jump rope injuries, makes me just giddy. My mother was fresh off the heels of an ugly divorce. This was an era when her leaving meant the good credit she had accrued in the marriage was given to him, leaving her as a credit risk when she'd kept the books all those years. Not only that, but she'd been tossed out of the Catholic Church she'd known her whole life, a place that swore they were a solid foundation until eternity, until they weren't. Good riddance, they didn't deserve her. Like emotional boot camp, she had to learn how to be self-reliant overnight. And after the summer struggle session, the last thing she sought was a man. Mike, though, was undeterred. He knew she was the one for him. They could be best friends until their dying days, and that would be enough. Hell, more than enough. He'd fallen in love and would settle for any relationship that my mother was comfortable having. The difference between daycare and Mike's kindergarten classroom, it was like watching a grainy black and white television, then switching to color. Mr. Prudhomme, as he told us to call him, was funny, kind, and gave instructions in both English and Spanish. He was in a grown man's body, but had a childlike zest for fun like us. He seemed to feed off our sense of wonder and our joy. An acoustic guitar was propped up in the same corner where the dunce stool sat in my morning class. He'd never resort to public shame to rein in his students, and that guitar guaranteed he had and kept our attention, not by threat, but out of curiosity. My morning class, taught by Mrs. Hosack across the river in Richland, felt like a trip to the dentist. Smelled like it too. I didn't know it then, but Lewis and Clark Elementary School was brand new. The walls were meticulous, chalkboards unmarred, carpets free of barf stains and paint spills. Every light bulb worked and the desks matched. On the first day of school in Mrs. Hosack's class, she introduced herself as a last-year teacher, smirking as she shared that she would be retiring in June. That drew a raised eyebrow for my mother, who sat in the back with her mother, Grandma Sneezick, who did not want to miss my first day of elementary school. I was dressed in spiffy plaid pants and a matching turtleneck, granimals. I was delighted to have an audience, not one to disappoint. I was in top form, raising my hand, answering questions, and then, I'm not really sure what I did wrong. I remember being grabbed by the arm and directed to a stool in the corner. A dunce hat plunked on my head. Mrs. Hosack had shown no consideration for my blonde, shiny ponytails. I'd only ever seen that conical shame crown on Saturday morning cartoons. All I can guess is that I was too much for Mrs. Hosack, as was Amy Badbada, who became my friend the instant she shared the stool and dunce hat with me. My mother apologized to me after school let out, saying the dunce hat had been because of her. She'd had a word with Mrs. Hosack prior to the first bell, saying she too was a kindergarten teacher. It had been done in good faith to foster kinship and maybe plant a seed of hope that I would merit a speck more attention than the other 35 students. My mom felt it had done the opposite, though, made my teacher defensive and petulant. I didn't care. I had a new friend and was soon to make a few more. A week or so after being plucked out of daycare, my mother found a reliable family who could watch me after school. Their daughter, Carla, went to Lewis and Clark Elementary too. She was one of the Hutton family. All 5 were pink-cheeked, shaped like shiny apples. Garth would go with me because they had a son his age. The Huttons let us inside their house. They taught me about VCRs and soap operas. On nights when my mother had late meetings, the Huttons even shared their Weight Watchers salmon patties with us. I missed the Technicolor classroom across the Columbia with a vibrant teacher at the helm, but I would see him again soon enough and often. Looking back, I believe that trusting Mike with me had done wonders to chip away the calcium wall around my mother's heart. Soon she, Garth, and I, dressed in our best party clothes, were invited to a Hardo's, the best restaurant in Pasco, Washington, where we had dinner with Mike. I've only been told the following story. I do not recall the moment I climbed onto the table, coaxed by the sounds of canned mariachi music, and twirled around and around, showing off my fluttery skirt. But it happened. The whole restaurant bore witness. Everyone but Garth, that is. He was busy choking on house-made salsa, gulping down orange soda to extinguish the fire in his mouth. Mike suggested a tablespoon of sugar, and that did the trick. Mortified, my mother coaxed me off the table, then dared to glance at Mike to apologize. I don't know what got into Jennifer. She's never done anything like this before. Well, I had, and I would again. Instead of judgment or derision, Mike's expression was rosy with love. For me, for Garth, and my mother. He'd fallen for the whole damn bunch of us. 4 years later, when we moved out of the apartment into a house in Pasco, my mother managed to lose my precious moments praying girl lamb given to me by Grandma and Grandpa Sneezik. But I gained a Mike and his fluffy white Samoyed Sasha. It was a trade to beat all trades. I hope I've inspired you to break out a notebook and begin to jot down the stories you remember of your life. If you need encouragement or a fresh set of eyes, please email me at the show at curious_cat_podcast@icloud.com. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.